Welcome back everybody. Today we're looking at Ghost of Tsushima. Sushi, you know, that game. We're looking at the proposed minimum requirement, which is the Intel Core i3-7100 or the AMD Ryzen 3 1200, 8GB of memory, the NVIDIA GeForce GTX960, I guess is the 4GB variant, or the AMD Radeon RX 5500 XT, probably also the 4GB. Welcome to Response PC. Let's sushi on. Little disclaimer while the intro cutscene is playing in the background. So for the test of this proposed minimum requirement, I decided to go with the i3-6100 because I don't have the i3-7100, and for the difference in performance, there's not much to say. Yes, the 7100 is about estimate 3% more performant than the 61. I don't think we're going to see the difference in this particular situation. Besides, the 7100 have a little bit higher clock at 3.9 compared to the 6100 at the 3.7, but I don't think that will make much a difference here. 8GB of memory, obviously, and I went with the GTX960 4GB variant. I don't have the RX 5500 XT or the Ryzen 3 1200, so I won't be testing those today. And you will need 75GB of available disk space. For minimum requirement, SSD is recommended, but for recommended setting, SSD is required. I don't know what will make such a difference that is required for recommended, but only recommend under minimum requirement. Anyway, we're going to be on SSD, obviously. They don't specify if it's 1080p, 720p, 1440p. They don't specify which FPS is a target, neither at which setting, but since it's minimum requirement, let's guess it's always low, or the lowest possible. Same go for resolution, it will be 1080p, and our target FPS will be 30. Since we're still on the intro cinematic of the game, as you can see, with all those settings, the cinematic averaging 27 FPS. That doesn't look good if for the game itself. To play the cinematic, the GPU is maxed out, 100%. The VRAM is almost maxed out at 3.5 GB, and the memory of the PC of 8 is now at 7.3, leaving a few for Windows to run in the background. But that's the cinematic. Maybe the game itself won't be the same, so let's jump to gameplay. And surprisingly enough, gameplay is less hard on the hardware than cinematic. And I'm telling you that the first 30 minutes of the game, you have one cinematic every 5 minutes, every 2 minutes. And when you first reach the first castle, the first place with a lot of enemies, it finally stabilizes and we have an average FPS of 44. This is highly playable. The GPU is maxed out at 99% of utilization. The VRAM of the GPU is also almost maxed out, and the memory of the PC is on the verge of max out. The CPU, even if it's lower than what it's recommended, lower than the minimum requirement, the CPU is still averaging in the 70% of utilization. So the CPU is plenty enough. So in the end, the minimum hardware for this game giving us a 44 FPS on average. This is quite highly playable, but we didn't reach the high density city yet. I don't know when I'm going to reach it, but we're not there yet. Maybe it will be similar like the cinematic at the beginning, where there was a lot of character NPC running everywhere. I can tell you that the minimum requirement is highly playable. I'm going to do a next video for the real minimum requirement and try to reach the next city to see how well it performs. On that note, that's it for today, and see you in the next one. And subscribe.